In the golden haze of a late summer afternoon, Jack Harlan pulled his battered pickup truck onto the dusty driveway of Willow Creek Farm, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. At 42, he'd cashed in his life savings, scraped together from years of soul-crushing corporate drudgery in Chicago, to buy this 50-acre plot sight unseen, dreaming of a fresh start away from the noise, the deadlines, and the emptiness that had swallowed his marriage and his spirit. But as he stepped out, shielding his eyes against the sun, he froze. There, in the overgrown fields, stood 3 women, towering figures, each at least 6'5", with broad shoulders honed by labor and faces weathered by stories he couldn't yet fathom. They turned as one, tools in hand, and approached him with purposeful strides. The tallest, with braided hair like ropes of midnight, fixed him with piercing eyes and declared in a thick, Eastern European accent, "You're going to have sex with us." Jack's world tilted. His mind raced to lurid headlines and bad decisions. Had he stumbled into some cultish nightmare? He stammered, backing toward his truck, "What? No, I just bought this place." "You can't," but the women exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from stern to puzzled, then to amusement. The middle one, with freckles dusting her cheeks like scattered stars, chuckled deeply. "Success," she repeated slowly, enunciating each syllable. "Have success with us. We make farm work. You new owner? We stay." Relief washed over Jack like cool rain, mingled with embarrassment. They weren't predators, they were survivors. Mira, Lena, and Sofia, sisters from a war-ravaged corner of Ukraine, had fled their homeland 2 years prior, seeking asylum in the American heartland. They'd discovered the abandoned farm during their desperate trek and, with no papers and nowhere else to go, had poured their sweat into reviving it. Crops now flourished where weeds once choked the soil. A makeshift coop housed clucking hens, and the old barn, though creaky, stood proud against the skyline. At first, Jack's instinct was to call the authorities. This was his dream, his escape, a solitary haven where he could heal from the divorce that had left him questioning his worth as a man, a provider, a human. Kindness? He'd forgotten what that felt like, buried under layers of self-preservation. But as evening fell and the sisters invited him to share a simple meal of borscht and fresh bread around a fire pit, he hesitated. Mira, the eldest at 38, spoke of their village bombed to rubble, of losing parents and husbands in the chaos. Lena, 35, the quiet one, showed him scars from shrapnel, her voice soft as she described teaching herself English from scavenged books. Sofia, the youngest at 32, with a fire in her eyes, laughed about their giant stature, a family trait that had made them outcasts back home but assets here, lifting bales and tilling earth with ease. They weren't just squatters, they were stewards, breathing life into land he'd bought for pennies because no one else wanted the hassle. That night, Jack lay in the farmhouse's musty bedroom, staring at the cracked ceiling. He'd come here to be alone, to prove he could stand on his own. Yet, listening to the wind whisper through the fields they'd tamed, he felt a stir of something unfamiliar, curiosity, perhaps, or the faint echo of compassion. The next morning, he confronted them again, armed with legal papers. "This is my property," he said firmly. "You have to leave." But Sofia crossed her arms, her height making her seem like a statue come to life. "Leave? And farm die again? We work hard. You city man, know no dirt from dream." Her words stung, unearthing memories of his father's farm in Iowa, lost to debt when Jack was a boy. They'd run from that life, chasing suits and skyscrapers, only to end up hollow. Unexpectedly, Mira stepped forward, her voice gentle. "We not take. We share. Teach you. Make success together." Jack paused, his resolve cracking. What harm in letting them stay a week? He could learn the ropes, then send them on their way. Days blurred into a rhythm of toil and tentative trust. Jack rose at dawn, his soft hands blistering as he joined them in the fields. Lena showed him how to mend fences, her patience a balm to his frustration. Sofia challenged him to race his hauling water buckets, her laughter infectious, melting his guarded heart. Mira, the strategist, revealed their secret. Hidden in the barn loft was a small hydroponic setup, ingeniously crafted from salvaged parts, growing herbs that fetched premium prices at local markets. They'd been selling quietly, saving every cent for legal aid to stay in the USA, but beneath their strength lay vulnerability. One evening, as thunder rumbled on the horizon, Lena collapsed while weeding, her face pale. "Old wound," she whispered, clutching her side. Jack drove her to the nearest clinic, paying out of pocket despite his dwindling funds. The doctor confirmed an infection from untreated shrapnel, nothing fatal, but a reminder of their fragile existence. That night, back at the farm, Jack sat with them, sharing stories of his own losses, the wife who'd left because he was never there, the job that demanded everything but gave nothing back. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a failure, but as a fellow traveler on life's rugged path. The unexpected turn came with the storm. A ferocious Midwest tempest barreled in, winds howling like banshees, rain lashing the earth. The sisters had predicted it, their instincts sharpened by survival, but Jack dismissed their warnings, insisting on securing the barn alone to prove his independence. As lightning cracked the sky, a beam gave way, trapping him under debris. Panique surged, he'd die here, alone in his stubborn pride. But then, shadows loomed. The three giants, braving the gale. Mira heaved the beam with raw power, Lena pulled him free with steady hands, and Sophia shielded them all with a tarp, her voice cutting through the roar, "Together. We success together." Dragged to safety, Jack gasped for air, realization crashing over him like the floodwaters. These women weren't intruders, they were mirrors, reflecting the humanity he'd buried. In his selfishness, he'd nearly lost everything, again. The climax unfolded in the storm's aftermath, as dawn broke over a battered but unbroken farm. Surveying the damage, flooded fields, toppled fences, Jack faced a choice. He could evict them, rebuild alone, chase his solitary dream. Or stay, he said, voice thick with emotion. This farm is ours. We fix it together. But it was more than words. Digging into his last reserves, Jack contacted a pro bono immigration lawyer he'd known from Chicago, vouching for the sisters with affidavits of their contributions. He sold his truck for parts to fund repairs, and together they innovated, expanding the hydroponics, starting a community-supported agriculture program that drew neighbors from miles around. In that act of generosity, opening his land, his heart, transformation bloomed. Mira's eyes welled as she hugged him, whispering, "You save us." But Jack knew the truth, they'd saved him, pulling him from isolation into connection. Months later, as harvest season painted the fields in abundance, Willow Creek Farm thrived not just in yield, but in spirit. Jack stood with Mira, Lena, and Sophia, his unlikely family, watching families from town pick pumpkins, laughter echoing like music. Refugees turned partners, they'd built more than a farm, they'd forged a beacon of hope. In a world fractured by borders and burdens, their story whispered a timeless truth: kindness isn't a weakness, but the mightiest force, turning strangers into saviors. Jack, once adrift, now rooted, felt the power of humanity pulse through him. Success wasn't in solitude, but in shared hands, lifted hearts. And in that unity, anyone could rise, giant strong, imbracable.